All right. I don't know if you remember, but I was going to go to Pune for the first time, and I was looking for, the how to go about it. So I had emailed them, and they'd said, yes, you can come, but I didn't know where to get the shorts or how to go about it. How are you supposed to, report for the first day? And then I saw you actually, one of your messages on a forum, on a Facebook forum. And I just pinged you and said, hey, I don't know, anything about this. And then you just pinged me back. And it was later on that I found out that you're a certified teacher, and, like, you have videos on YouTube, and, that you're quite experienced. So it's quite exciting for me to find that out. And it was just like a coincidence that I got in touch with the right person, like coincidentally. So thank you for doing this also, because, with this whole COVID thing going on, I feel like the whole world is going through the same thing right now, and I feel like we're all like coming closer.
Yes.
And so I've been practicing a lot, and then I've been reading a lot about yoga, and then I thought maybe I should start having conversations with other yoga teachers around the world, just to see what they're up to, how we're all dealing with it. So I thought let's start with you.
Well, yeah, I think that I do remember anytime anybody is having their first trip to Pune, I always have a lot of compassion, because it can be, it's really a magical place. It's the hub of Iyengar yoga. It's a very important center where people really come to learn and to nourish themselves, by this wonderful man that created this style of yoga to help us really understand what yoga is all about. And I know that when I was first going to India and to go to Pune, I had some friends that just told me the right things that I feel made a big difference in my experience. There are a lot of people that have gone to Pune and have had terrible experiences.
Right. Yeah.
Anytime I see or hear of somebody going there for the first time, I want to share whatever it is that I know, so that, it's not such a intimidating and scary experience, because it really is such a wonderful and fulfilling experience. And now 25 years later, here I am. I have a yoga studio in the Miami area. I've been here for about 25 years, and I had to close my studio on March 14th because I started feeling, it was interesting because I've been always kind of led by my intuition. My intuition one day said, you should open a studio. So I did. My intuition said, you should go to India to study with BKS Iyengar. So I did. So I've always had a lot of faith. And for 3 days in a row, I kept waking up at 4 a.m, getting this message, you have to close the studio. Before anything had really happened here, I had already been hearing about this from probably the end of January. And I started looking because I've always had a global view of the world. I never saw myself as just in this little microcosm. And my father worked for the World Health Organization, so we got to travel. And anywhere that he traveled, we always saw that there was a whole world. So I saw that this was coming, and I felt that I do have a lot of students that are older, and I felt that it was my duty and my responsibility to protect them. And originally I didn't know who to ask. Should we close the studio? Should we not? So I emailed 50 friends that have yoga studios all over the world. And I said, what are you doing? What are you going to do? I feel like we should be closing the studio. And for the most part, actually out of those 50, I think I got 5 responses. And mostly there was a lot of fear about closing the studios because of the economic impact it would have on all of us. And I mean, that was my fear. But I kept thinking, okay, if this is happening and I'm getting this message of you need to close the studio, I felt like, okay, whatever higher source, I have a big faith, I believe in God. If God is telling me, or someone is giving me this message and I'm getting this feeling that it was very powerful, you have to close, I can't question that. I have to trust that. So I decided to close the studio a little bit before other people were even talking about it.
Right.
And my students were very sad. They were crying, and I figured, like, this is for everybody's protection. We can't, we can clean and disinfect the mats all we want, but if it's in the air and somebody gets it, and it could have devastating effects. So I'm not well, I wasn't very technologically advanced, and I just started researching, what do I do? How can I continue to support the students? Because now we're in a whole different world. And actually, since I opened the studio, my travel a lot, I have students from all over the world. They kept asking me, Rosa, why don't you do online classes? Is there a way to study with you online? And I always kind of stayed away from that because number one, it was too scary for me. And number two, I really believe that there is something that is very human about the transmission of the work of yoga. Well, now I had to change a little bit. I said, okay, this is where we are. I still have to provide this work, this tool that can help so many people now that, you know, when I think about it, students tell me things. So I have students that suffer from depression and anxiety, and, you know, or want to conceive, or they have back pain, or they have neck problems, or shoulder, the list goes on and on. I felt I can't abandon them. So I have to do something to learn. So I did my research and then found out Zoom was going to be the easiest way. And now I'm like meeting for lunch with some friends on Zoom. I'm being able to help my students to be able to express, to still gather in community. After the class, we all gather to community. They want to see, oh, there's my friend that's in class, and they get to exchange, because already, you know, especially here in Florida where I live, there's already a lot of people that live alone, and there's a lot of solitude. And the studio, the yoga studio, has really made like a an artificial community center in a way. It's a home away from home. Some of my students that are religious, that, you know, maybe they go to church or they go to a synagogue. Now they say they don't go to church, or they don't go to synagogue, that the yoga is their temple.
Right. That's nice. That's nice. But now that you're on Zoom, and, you know, we are using technology to transmit the knowledge of yoga, do you think that this could be potentially the future of yoga? Like, do you, even when we go back to normal, whenever that is, do you think that you would be comfortable keeping, you know, an online schedule going? Because, you know, simply because you can reach so many more people, and, you know, the teaching does change. I mean, in the sense that you're not there, you know, that personal touch, or that physical touch isn't there. But, you know, do you feel that we could perhaps eventually build tools, like a way to communicate and a way to express ourselves, that could actually transmit the knowledge of yoga, even though we are divided or connected, let's say connected through technology? Yeah.
Absolutely. One of my main frustrations in teaching at the studio has been to be able to transmit the importance of a home practice. And partly because it's people want to get out of their house, and they want to go, and they want to meet with their friends, and they want to come to yoga. And there's definitely like a sacred kind of an energy that does occur when there's a group of people practicing yoga. I'm sure you experienced that in Pune at the Ramamani Memorial Iyengar Yoga Institute. I mean, I know that when I go there, there's definitely the only way I can describe it is by saying there's magic that happens.
Yeah. But
there's also a magic that happens when you are in solitary confinement in your own practice. I have had at one point I saw it like a curse that my teachers were not in this state. My teachers were in other states in the US. And so I had to cultivate my own practice. And I find that, to me, it's really a very sacred time. And I always wanted to teach that to my students. But they're having a certain kind of a group magic that they're drawn to, that feeds them, that helps them to be in community. And I see the benefits of both. I feel that now that there isn't this physical presence, because, you know, in this Miami area, there's a lot of Latin influence and European influence. So we hug everybody, and everyone comes in, you get a hug. And, you know, sometimes people come in and they had a loss in their family, they're mourning, you know, a hug can make really a big difference in somebody's life. There's people who are not getting hugged every day. So here, at least, they're having an artificial hug, but from another human being, that sometimes can really make the big difference between feeling seen or feeling empty. So now this virtual hug that we're forced into, I also see a benefit because now the students are having to be responsible.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes in teaching, I would get frustrated that I would teach somebody saying how to set up the blanket, how to put the chair for chair sarvangasana, or something like that. Oh, I don't remember. Well, now you don't have a choice because I'm not there to do it for you.
Yeah.
And I would get to a point sometimes I say, okay, this is the last time I'm going to show you. Take a picture with your phone if you need to.
Yeah.
But we also have to cultivate that smriti, that memory. You know, I always have a joke with my students. Imagine if you don't remember when you go outside which one is your car, or you don't remember what your name is. We have to cultivate our skills of memory. So now I actually see, now that there is nobody there to save them, all I'm doing is giving them instructions, and pretty limited instructions, because I do feel a sense of freedom that now my children have gone off to college and now they have to use what they have learned to their advantage. They have the tools, and for the most part, you know, they've been given the information. Some of them, maybe they don't have props, but I give them other ways of doing. And I remind everybody, this is how the whole idea of props even began. The BKS Iyengar would go into somebody's home and he would be adjusting people into the proper positions. And then they said, well, how do I do this when you're not here, sir? And he looked around, and then here we're doing yoga with chairs and with tables and benches and all these things. So now it's like we're going back to the original way of practicing yoga, because what is yoga is for this tool for transformation and evolution of humankind. So now the people that are inside and they have too much time on their hands, what are they doing? They're doing yoga.
Yeah, that's great. And I guess for us as practitioners also, even though we may be teaching, for us as practitioners also, it's a good way to sort of step back and reflect on our practice and, you know, have more time. Did you read the message? You must have read the message from Abhijata where she's saying now is the time to go in and just practice. Yes. So it was, that message actually came at a very important time for me, because I was like, oh, now we're just indoors, and like in India, we don't know when the lockdown is going to end. It could be anywhere from like next week to like 3 months, 4 months, you know. So I was like, okay, this is actually what I needed, you know, and to go back to the books, Light on Yoga, Yoga Gem for Women, and, you know, like look at those sequences and structure a training, and, you know, like it came at the right time. And it's almost sort of like bringing a meditative qualities for the day, you know, because you can actually like sort of connect to the practice, and it sort of gives me inspiration to for what I would like to teach, or how I would like to teach, or, you know, just a little bit more, like I feel more connected to the practice now because I'm not so busy all the time, and you know, it's giving me space.
Yes. I feel for me that I've been practicing pranayama for I don't know how many years. And now I feel how the practice has now created some kind of a base, the roots of what's actually been able to sustain me, to give me strength, to give me this connection to something bigger than myself, to be able to realize that, okay, no matter what, I'm going to get up and I'm going to sit and I'm going to do my breathing. I tell my family, you know, I get up and I breathe. But without that, I can't imagine, you know, what other people that don't have this tool, what they're going through. And the beautiful part about having online classes is that now my students are able to share with their friends and their family all over the world. So it's very exciting that, you know, the last week I've had students from Pune. I have students from St. Petersburg in Russia. And yesterday I had a woman from Montreal in Canada. And I've had, there was another one, I don't remember where else, but they're like from all over. And it's just, this is, you know, I look at, okay, so yoga is really uniting people in a very different way. And regardless of what styles of yoga people are practicing, you know, it's something that is definitely needed
Mm-hmm.
and that's
Yeah.
bringing us all together in a
That's
whole new
amazing.
way. I think it's amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing. And since we were talking about Abhijata and you were mentioning Mr. Iyengar, tell me about like your journey. How did you come to yoga, and how did you come to specifically Iyengar yoga? Was this the first form of yoga that you practiced, or were you in with other classes?
Yes, actually, the first time I tried a yoga class, I was 8 months pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
I was living in Maryland,
Mm-hmm.
and the teacher, it was at a gym. The teacher was, I would say, teaching more like a gym yoga kind of a yoga.
Right.
And I didn't know anything about yoga, but I thought somebody told me, maybe my doctor, oh, you're pregnant, you should do yoga. It's good for when you're pregnant.
Okay.
And the whole class, the woman had absolutely no idea what to do with a woman that was 8 months pregnant. And the whole class was basically done prone on your belly, doing back bends and things that intuitively I knew that I shouldn't do. Mm-hmm. She pretty much ignored me the whole class, which I think was probably a good idea. I just sat there and I did whatever I felt like I should do, watching them thinking, I guess yoga is not for pregnant women. And so that was that. And then I moved to Florida, to this Miami area. And I happened to go to the gym. I was a gym person. So I used to do step aerobics. I used to run, weights, all these things. And one day the aerobics teacher didn't show up. Okay. So the owner of the gym said, there's a yoga class that's going to start upstairs. And I went back to that memory of the horrible yoga class I had. But I was so frustrated that I needed my workout. I was there to work out. I had 3 small children, all under the age of 4 at the time. And I said, I have to do something. I need a workout. So I go upstairs to this yoga class and I walk in, and there's a small little woman by the name of Marilyn Rubin and 2 senior citizens that were probably like 150 years old. And I thought, oh my God, my aerobics teacher was this really strong woman. She had muscles and she was gorgeous and she was very energetic and young and beautiful. And I said, oh my God, now I'm here with these old people. But something happened that when they saw me walk into the room, they said, oh, are you here for yoga? And they were so nice that I felt I didn't want to disrespect them. I was just raised like that. So I would be nice and I would stay for the class. Right. And then the woman, Marilyn, started teaching us these poses, these exercises that I have never done before in my life. Downward dog. And she's giving instructions I don't even understand. Move your leg like this, move your leg like that. And everything was uncomfortable. Every pose was, painful. I was very, very stiff because I was a runner. And I used to do weights and not really, I would stretch, but not that much. Right. During Shavasana, which at the time I didn't know what was Shavasana, I laid there and I remember thinking, wow, you can just lay here and do nothing? I never do that. I'm always running to do something. This is amazing. And then I started seeing all these colors. I never saw those colors again. But now, 25 years later, I realized those were the colors of the chakras. But at the time, I just saw these beautiful colors and I didn't know what it was. And it never happened again. I was left with something that I said, I want to go back to this. And so that's how my yoga career kind of began. And I would go to this class once a week. And then one day, she didn't show up, the teacher. Mm-hmm. By now, there were maybe 5 students. Mm-hmm. And the student said to me, well, you're always here. Why don't you teach the class? And I said, I'm not a yoga teacher. I'm an aerobics teacher. I don't know what to do. They said, oh, you go ahead. It's all the same thing. So I taught the class. Basically, I copied Marilyn's class. I copied her instructions, her sequences, her jokes, everything that I could remember that she had taught, I taught the class. Right. And the students loved it. And they said, oh, we would love to take a class with you. And I said, no, I'm not a yoga teacher. I'm a personal trainer and I'm a yoga, an aerobics instructor, not yoga.
And you were like an aerobics instructor. You were like a certified. Yes.
I was a certified aerobics instructor. I was a certified personal trainer at the time. Okay. But the students went and they told the owner of the gym, they wanted me to teach yoga also. So that's how I got thrown into teaching. Okay. Without any training. I mean, this is 1995. Madonna hadn't started doing yoga yet. Right. So I guess it wasn't, And that's how my career began. And I realized when I started having people that would come to my classes with different problems like arthritis, and this one has a knee replacement, this one has a torn rotator cuff, this one has, pacemaker, I realized I got to get some training in this, because I'm a trained in, I knew the body from my training as an aerobics instructor and as a personal trainer, but I didn't know the whole world of yoga. And that's when I decided to, I did a teacher training out in Naples, Florida. That was my first teacher training. And I realized I didn't know anything. And my training was really learning from Light on Yoga, which was that's how I learned. I would take a pose every day, read everything he had to say about it. And over the years, maybe a few years passed, Marilyn said, Mr. Iyengar is having an 80th birthday celebration. You should go to India. And actually, I should backtrack. Before that, I took a workshop with Manuso Manos. And he was, it was the first Iyengar yoga workshop I had ever taken. And that was maybe in 97 or so. And I just remember taking his class thinking, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life, because it was really a life-changing experience. I saw not yoga as exercise, which is what I was, it was helping me with my back pain. It was helping me to feel better overall. People say my PMS improved. But this was like, I want to know more. So then that's when Marilyn said that Mr. Iyengar was having a 80th birthday celebration. And I was a stay-at-home mom with 3 kids. And something inside of me said, you have to be there. And I didn't have the money. I didn't have any idea of how I was going to pull it off. And I just visualized myself chanting Om with Mr. Iyengar in front of me. That's all I imagined. I couldn't think about anything else. And I guess, the angels or the universe or whatever higher powers wanted me to be there, that I was there. And seeing him in action, I can honestly say I never really grew up with the idea of a guru. And when I saw BKS Iyengar, I realized I'm seeing a guru.
Wow.
And we were doing Virabhadrasana 2 and forever, because I had never held the poses in my life so much. I think we did one time in those 2 weeks, we did Tadasana for like an hour. Everything you ever wanted to know about Tadasana was amazing. But I remember at the time I was still new, so I didn't get everything. I read back my notes and I laugh because I wonder what this means. But he had us in Virabhadrasana 2, and he said, you have to spread your soul all the way and feel it into your fingertips. And I just remember my own whole body lit up. Wow. It never happened again after that. But that moment is something that I'll never forget, because it was really, I was somewhere else. It wasn't exercise. It wasn't, probably it wasn't even a pretty pose. But there was something that he had put his finger on in me that I wanted to come back to this place. And I keep doing my practice to come back to this place that, when I came back from that trip, I read all his books, and, I realized reading The Tree of Yoga, one of my favorite books. It's BKS Iyengar speaking to me. This is how he speaks. And his books are, you read his books and like he's talking to you. And I feel like I read it just to hear him again. Of course you can go on YouTube and really watch him. And some people might see him, with his stern voice or hitting or slapping or something like that. And they don't realize the magnitude of this man. But those of us that had that gift of being able to be in his presence, I didn't realize it at the time, but now that he's no longer with us here physically, he still comes to me in dreams and teaches me things and has me, I'll get these messages like, you have to teach this to this person.
Oh,
I do it just in case.
Wow.
But I was really in the presence of a guru. And after that, I got to meet Gita ji. And I actually studied more times with Gita ji than Guruji. And I realized also that she was like a mother teaching in a different language what her father was trying to get us to understand.
Right, right.
And so the two, and now we're so lucky because we have Prashadji also teaching us all the esoteric teachings that Guruji and Gitaji were giving us, but we didn't understand because we were too concerned with the inner elbow or the fingers or whatever.
Right.
And now he's also, and then Abhijata brings in her own joy and,
Right.
you know, easy. You know, there's something about a mother that makes it so that their children can learn.
Yeah.
So I feel very blessed at this school.
So I've actually had the privilege of accidentally attending one of Geetaji's classes as well. So 2 years ago, when I went to Pune, I was just hanging out after my class was over, and we thought that, you know, there's going to be a teacher who's going to come, but we didn't know who it was. And so I was sitting in the back, you know, of the practice room near the windows, and all of a sudden it was Geetaji who was she was brought in. And we were because, you know, she was known to be a very strict teacher. So we were like, okay, yeah. And at the same time, I was feeling very lucky, and we all were, because we didn't expect this. And all of a sudden, she says, "Well, you know, everybody's gonna attend class today." So we were like, okay, it's probably these people who, you know, who gathered for the class, and it's probably not us who are visibly just, you know, hanging out in the back. And she's like, no, all of you guys. And, you know, she's pointing like, all you guys, yes, you come. And then we were like, we're looking at each other. And, you know, I was like, okay, this is going to be like a terrifying class. And, you know, I've never studied with the senior teachers. And you know, then she said, guys, you know, don't worry. In her words, she said, don't worry. I know what they say about me. So some of you may be getting afraid, but don't worry. This is going to be, we're here together, or something like that, you know. And also during that session, she also told us, in fact, this was the year she passed away. And she was talking about, and I would never believe it had I not been there to witness it. She said, every day I pray to God that I should see my dad's 100th anniversary, and then my work is done. And you know, and that's what happened. And I would never have believed it had I not been there to witness that class. But it was an amazing class. It's just and it's difficult for me to describe you know, the quality that the class had, because I think I saw, it was almost like watching magic, like witnessing magic, and everybody was feeling that magic in the class. And it's hard to describe it to somebody who doesn't know what magic can happen, you know, in a yoga class. But I feel so so blessed and lucky. It's almost like having inadvertently come across treasure. You know, we were just sitting thinking, oh, some class is going to happen and I'm going to take notes. And here I was in class with Geetaji, you know, the legend. So I've actually had an amazing, wonderful experience with her, and she was amazing.
You know, there's my students that are Jewish. They're always teaching me words, and there's in Yiddish, which is like an ancient language. There's a saying. There's a word, beshert, which means like something that's meant to happen, like a blessing. That it's not by random, that you happen to be there. You were meant to be there to receive that gift. So it's making me think about that it was beshert. Yeah. It was you were there, and you were meant to be there.
Wow. Yeah.
And you know, I got to see Geetaji in the summer before she passed also, that I couldn't believe. She was teaching every day. And when she first walked in, I remember thinking, oh my God, she's so weak. She looks so, you know, she doesn't look so strong, and I hope she's going to be okay. You know, I hope nothing happens to her during the class. But once she got going, I was like, she's stronger than I am. She has this
exactly.
Power.
Yeah.
That, yes, and she had a gift of being able to see you, even if you were hiding behind the pillar by the window. She could see your energy is not flowing. I don't know if I'm going to ever be able to cultivate that intuition that she could feel. She would look and do a scan of the room, almost with her, like she would close her eyes a little bit, like she's zooming in on something. And then she would immediately know who needed her. And she just had a way of bringing that person, like she used to say, you know, help them from drowning. You know, she's saving us, all of us, from drowning.
In fact, I went through a phase in my practice so I used to go to a teacher who was like an hour away from my house. And in Bangalore, traffic is so bad that it, like maybe in like regular time, like when there's no traffic, it would just take me about 20 minutes to get there. But usually it takes me about an hour because it's in the evening. So I was going to this class, which was really far away. And I felt like I wasn't really getting anywhere. I'd been going to this teacher for a long time, and it was more for like a beginner's class. And like we weren't doing, things that I wanted to learn. I wanted to explore a little bit more. And I was feeling like I'm not, able to study as much as I wanted to. Like I wasn't studying any headstands, and when I would go to Pune, I would be doing the headstands. And I felt like when I was coming to Bangalore, the practice would always sort of not be of the same level, and I would feel that I can do so much more, and that I'm young and I should put in that effort and stuff. So I spoke to Abhijata about it, like I don't know what to do now, because all teachers are really far away in Bangalore. I just, it's so exhausting to even drive through all that traffic.
Of course.
So she said, well, let me speak to Geeta ji about this. So I said, okay. And then unfortunately that year, this was towards the end of my stay in Pune, unfortunately I got dengue fever, and then I couldn't go to class for the next 2-3 days, and I had to come back to Bangalore. So I wrote a mail to her, and she said, well, I spoke to Geeta ji, and she said that you must work with the asanas. Don't work with a teacher. You work with the asanas. You must do it yourself. Don't let go of the asanas. Stick to the asanas. So it was just like this one line that she sent to me, but it meant so much, So
Yes.
Geeta ji had a way with words, maybe, or, everything meant so much. So she was amazing.
She didn't only see this. She saw the big picture.
Yeah.
She had a way of seeing the big picture. I was teaching some classes in Colombia and trying to plant the seeds of Iyengar yoga in Colombia. So I went to her and I said, there seems to be so much like political problems in all of the different countries. Once the yoga gets settled in, is there anything that I can do to help to prevent that? And she thought hard about it. She was silent for a moment, and she looked at me and she said, Rosa, people come to me all the time wanting to find out what poses should I do to prevent cancer. She said, some things you just cannot prevent. What you must do is teach them the proper asanas, teach them the correct actions, teach them proper pranayama, teach them the philosophy, tell them about the books, because, there was some places where they didn't have access to the books in Spanish. Right. So she said, teach them the philosophy of the books, share what has been given to you. And I think that that's really something that's really important, because here we all have received a gift. If we can really open our hearts and see the tremendous, like you said, the treasure that we have been given, and if we can really honor and maintain the sacredness of that treasure, so that when we're sharing it as what it is, this sacred treasure that is life transforming. I mean, I look at it that this is the way to be able to spread world peace. And I know it sounds very much like a Miss Universe kind of like, oh, I love world peace. But this is a tangible way of getting people to find at least peace in their body. And if you have peace in the body, how are you going to act out in the world? I mean, it makes sense. It's not just a, la la land kind of idea. Right. It's like, you got to work for it.
So what is the best thing about being a teacher for you?
Oh my goodness. I think that the best thing about being a teacher for me is I love what I do. I feel that the teachings for me, sometimes I can get very overwhelmed, and there's so much to do. There's so much that's given that what I do is I'll take one thing in my practice and I say, okay, I'm going to take spreading my hamstrings and do only that action in every pose that I practice for today. And so being able to just do one thing has been something that has really helped me to understand the postures. And then there's so many things to do that every day you're never bored. You know, when people say I'm bored, I don't understand that, because I've never been a child that could ever get bored. I always find something to do, something to color, something to write, something to sing or dance or something. So with the practice also, I feel that from my own practice that I've been able to help people to simplify, not to simplify, you know, like, oh, let's take away all of the important information, but so that they can start somewhere. That, okay, this is, you'll have to do one thing. Right. And being able to share that, number one, is already, I feel like a gift. I feel a responsibility that I have been given this treasure. Right. It's not mine. And it's changed my life. And it should belong to, but everyone should have access to this treasure. And I feel like giving this to somebody that can get started with that treasure, and then they can cultivate. My idea is that they're going to also spread it. So the same way that a virus can spread, we can also spread this treasure. Yes. You know? And it can be something, a positive thing. And we can look at this virus, maybe, you know, it's not a positive thing in the world, but in a way it has brought us together like nothing else. And being able to give this treasure that gives you health, and not just physical health, but mental health. There, you know, there's so many things that this can give you, that it's a natural way. I feel like maybe, you know, from the long lost shamans, that this is the answer to all of the health woes of the world. You know, I grew up, my father worked for the World Health Organization. So I was in my upbringing, I was brainwashed into always being aware of lowering your risk factors. His specialty was communicable diseases. So anything that you can do to lower your risk factors. Well, stress is the biggest risk factor for every disease. Right. So I feel that as a teacher, I have this wonderful job now that I can share preventative medicine. You know, and I'm not calling him in. I'm not a doctor. I'm a yoga teacher, but I think that there is a natural medicine innate in all of us, that our bodies already know how to heal. If I cut my arm and then there's a scab there and it heals on its own, how does it do that? And if it does it in my arm, why can't it do it in other places? But I have to be in tune with that system so that I can understand, you know? So the gift that I think of being a yoga teacher is to be able to share this work and to see the transformation in my students. That's the biggest gift.
And do you practice daily? Do you have like fixed timings when you practice in the day? How do you practice?
So the fixed time that I do is my pranayama. I wake up anywhere between 4 in the morning and 6 in the morning, just naturally. I wake up and I sit and I do, depending on what pranayama that I'm working on, but lately it's just been, you know, the ujjayi breath. Sometimes I work in viloma, and sometimes I'll do the alternate nostril breathing, and that keeps me calm. Sometimes I just start doing something and then the breath will say, you know, not today for this one, maybe just do this one. You know, it depends on what's going on. And then after that, I do a nice long shavasana. And then I sit for meditation. And so that usually happens anywhere between 4 and 6 in the morning, sometimes 7 if I sleep in. And then depending on what time I'm teaching, I'll usually practice either before my class. The last couple of years, I've been dealing with perimenopausal symptoms, you know, hot flashes and weird things that are happening in my body. So I find that practicing in the morning, I love practicing in the morning because mentally and intellectually, my mind is very clear. But I find that my body is very, very stiff. So I've been practicing sometimes, depending on the day, sometimes I'll do some of the practice in the morning and then some of the practice in the afternoon. I find that my afternoon practices my body is much happier practicing in the afternoon, especially if I'm doing forward bends. And I really feel that I have a different body than I had 10 years ago. So I'm working to see, you know, what is it that my body needs on a specific day. I probably practice 6 days a week asana, but pranayama is every day.
So what advice would you give to like yoga practitioners and wannabe teachers, and, you know, how should we practice? What should our approach be? Also, another important thing that I that I always wonder about is, should we all be reading something along with our practice? Like, sometimes I feel like initially when you're, a beginner yoga student, you're not focusing so much on reading philosophy. Sometimes some people say that you're not ready for philosophy also. So what do you think? Do you think at all times we should supplement our physical practice, with some philosophy?
I think that when you're a practitioner and you first come to yoga, whatever it is that it's giving you, you should run with it. So I have one of our teachers at the studio, her name is Dina, and she's 86 years old. She gave me advice when I first started practicing Iyengar yoga, and she said, when you go home, you practice one thing that you loved in the class that came easily for you, but also practice one thing that was not so easy for you that you did not love. So over the years, that has been a little bit of my, I keep that in the back of my mind, that I can very easily go to the poses that are easy for me to practice. And I try to avoid the ones that are not so easy to practice. So I've always tried to practice something that is not so easy for me, and then also to practice something that comes easily for me. Now, the funny thing is that over the years, that has all shifted and has changed. So I used to have very, very tight hamstrings that my Uttanasana, my fingers came to my knees. And it took me 10 years to reach the floor. And now Uttanasana is for me a mind calming, that when I need a break from life, particularly now, I had one day I had a meltdown because there's just too many things going on. And I said, okay, what's going to get rid of this emotional? So I went into a handstand. I went to dog pose. Nothing was working. Uttanasana calmed me immediately. And I thought, okay, so this is kind of cool. So I find that over the years, the practice will change and it'll evolve. Right now, my practice is really focusing on keeping my nervous system calm, because I found that when I would do very, strong back bends, and back bends don't come easily for my body. I have a little bit of scoliosis, and I have a little bit of kyphosis in the thoracic spine. But I found that the poses that would give me a calm nervous system are really what my system needs right now. So, it changes every day. There was an article with Patricia Walden one time, I don't remember where, but she had said that somebody asked her, how do you know what to practice? She would put her mat down and she would sit and say, body, what do you need today? And sometimes I'll do that, and because you get an answer. It's amazing how you get an answer. And other times, if I see something interesting, now with this whole digital world, it's very cool because I get to see some weird setups that I've never seen before, from teachers in Russia or in China or anywhere in the world, for some poses that I say, wow, that's amazing. So sometimes I'll pick something like that and say, okay, what do I need to do to warm up to do that? Kapotasana on a chair, or, whatever it is. So I don't really have like a set rule of I'm going to follow this. I did for a long time when I was preparing for assessment. It was very, for me, I like organized things. So I felt like over the years, I started seeing how the sequencing that BKS Iyengar has, even the order of the books, gives us some clues about how you should sequence or what order poses come in. And I find that that's also been a very useful resource. So I guess I'm not answering the question because it depends on the day.
I think, like what you're saying is basically listen to your body. Be very, like, it's intuitive, like what should come. And maybe it just means for those of us who have very active minds, just to sort of give it a break and see what you feel like doing instead of what you think you should be practicing.
Well, Gita Ji used to say, start with Adho Mukha Svanasana and Uttanasana, and those will give you the will to practice. It's almost like you don't want to practice, and I give all my students, okay, your homework is to do Adho Mukha Svanasana. From there, your body will say, okay, one more pose, one more pose, especially the new people.
That's actually very true. Yeah.
Yeah.
So whenever I come back from, in fact, yeah, it started after I've been to Pune about 4 times now. So I noticed that before I started going on my trips to Pune, my practice was very haphazard in terms of how it would begin, how it would end. But now I see that it always begins with Adho Mukha Svanasana and Uttanasana. So yeah.
Well, in regards to how do you start to study the philosophy also, is once you start with asana, at least it was for me, I want to know more. And I know that when I saw BKS Iyengar in action, I came back with all his books. I used to read, I had the Yoga Sutras.
Right.
And I used to read them and I didn't understand anything.
Right.
So I had a friend that told me, start in the second chapter, because the second chapter is about the practice. The first chapter is all about the mind. So I did that for a while and that seemed to help. And I go back to, you know, my morning after I do my meditation, while I'm having my breakfast, I'm usually reading something in the Bhagavad Gita, or I'm reading something in the Yoga Sutras, because I feel like in the morning is when I'm fresh, so everything gets absorbed better.
Right.
And I feel like as a teacher, when you're studying the philosophy, it'll come out naturally. You don't have to go looking for it, like, oh, today I'm going to teach them about Smriti. You know, I feel that the more that we dive in, I really truly believe in Svadhyaya. All the teachers that I have mentored, that I have trained, I tell them, you're going to teach from your practice. It's going to come out of what you have experienced. So in the beginning, yeah, you might copy your teacher a little bit, but ultimately you're going to teach from what you have learned. And that's the most authentic way of sharing the work. Now, I know that there's other systems that they have scripts. You memorize the script and that's what you teach. I don't feel like that's authentic, because it's somebody else's experience. And even in the way I think about, I practice Iyengar yoga. This is like kind of, we're all zooming in on BKS Iyengar's practice, but that's not my practice. You know, from what he has given us, I have taken that into my practice, into my body, and it's a whole other experience. So I can only share it from what I understand. I'm sure there's a lot of things I don't understand, but I'm still working on it, and I'm excited to learn more. There's so much to discover that we don't even know.
Yeah. So what are some books that you would recommend to, you know, to practitioners and young teachers who are not as experienced as you are? And yeah.
Definitely Light on Yoga, without, you know, that's not even, I shouldn't even say it, but that should be already understood. Light on Yoga. And I hear that when he wrote that book, he wrote it for people that would not have a teacher. So not everything is in there. Yeah. Because he discovered more. Right. But that is a basic. That's the book that I studied with when I didn't have a teacher in the beginning, and that's a mandatory book. Number one. Right. Number two would be Tree of Yoga. Right. Tree of Yoga is just, I think I've read it 4 times, and I never get tired of reading it, because he has given us so much in that little book. Yeah. Gem for Women is so innocent, so pure, so beautiful. Yes. I love how, you know, Gita ji puts us back in the days where she was in a different world. It was a different world when she says, you know, first make sure that your children are off to school and take care of your husband, and then you do your practice. It's just so innocent and so, you know, it might sound old-fashioned, but it's authentic. I think it's a beautiful book, and seeing her practice and seeing her sister's practice when she's pregnant for women is a must. And even for men also, to understand women's bodies, I think is important. Oh my gosh, I could go on and on and on. There's so many wonderful books. The Bhagavad Gita, you know, there's so many different translations. Yeah. There's what's my you know, there's a lot of the if people have access to the Yoga Rahasyas over the years that come from Rimyi, I think that those are straight from the source, absolutely fantastic books. You know, that if you have if you don't speak English and you want to read them in a different language, have a friend translate them for you, because there's a lot of that's like a whole vault of treasures.
Yeah. Okay.
And there's also a lot of Prashant Ji's books that I don't remember the name of them, but there are these little books that have just tremendous value and tremendous information in them. I think that any book by P.K.S. Iyengar or Gita Ji or Prashant Ji, there's no question. Light on Life is also a way of Guruji bringing this work into our real life, because right now, does anybody really care about a perfect pose? We just want to be able to live in this world with this crazy, situation that we're in. And now it's not so much about, I know here they do a lot of the yoga pose in a bikini on the beach. How is that going to change right now? But being able to stay mentally stable, to be able to make a decision about your business or your family or a family member, having that clarity of mind right now, that's really where the value lies in our practice.
Okay, basically how our practice helps us in the real world, not really.
Yeah, that's what it's all for. Yeah. And also to keep us away from forgetting that we're all really divine beings somewhere in there. There's some kind of a divine something. And, we forget that. And then really maybe this practice, even for a second, brings us back to that state of, you know what, everything is going to be okay. Because there's a saying that we're really spiritual beings having a human experience. We're not humans having spiritual experience. Right. We're already spiritual beings, but we forget. And I think that this asana practice, this pranayama practice, this yoga practice, this understanding practice brings us back to that source so that we don't forget who we really are.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, that's a different perspective, to look at ourselves as divine beings and not as human beings. And wow. Are you coming to Belur? I saw the schedule and you're slated for April or something like that. Are you slated to?
I was there, maybe it was 2 years ago. I brought a group to Belur. I think I was trying to bring a group to Belur in August, but with this situation, I'm not sure what's going to happen. I hope I will come back to Belur. Have you been to Belur?
Yes, several times. In fact, I attended a Manuso Manus workshop in Belur. And in fact, when they started, Abhijata, Raya, and several other teachers had come for the inauguration, and so I'd attended like a 3-day workshop there also with them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I wonder if you were in the one that I was in. I went to one where it was Abhijata, Birju Mehta, and Rajvi. So you were there and I was there.
I went to that also, yeah. So that was the inaugural workshop, I guess. Yes. Yeah, and Raya wasn't there. Yeah, it was these 3. Raya wasn't there. Yeah.
That was so I was in Pune, and my roommate said, "Hey, there's going to be a program in Belur. You want to go?" I didn't even think about it. I said yes.
So this was 4 years ago, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so actually that is when I met Abhijata for the first time. So before that, I had been trying to go to Pune, and I kept sending them an email, and Pandu kept responding back saying, no, you can't come, just stay. And I wasn't learning, like even at that time, I felt like I was outgrowing the class that I was in. So a bunch of my classmates, we'd all gone as a class, and a bunch of my classmates said that, if you really want to go, then you should just talk to her right now. And I was kind of hesitant because, I was just hesitant. And so I'd have to really give credit to my classmates, because these are all like older women, like really old, so in class we're just doing like very basic asanas for older bodies, maybe like 80, 85-year-old bodies, and so these women, they're saying like, it doesn't matter what the teacher is saying, because my teacher had sort of like been telling me that, just do whatever you're doing in class, and with time, things are going to move on and stuff. But I kept thinking that, I have like a 30-year-old body and I can do so much more than the 85-year-olds. So these 85-year-old ladies then told me, no, now is your chance. You just go and speak to her right now. And so I spoke to her and I said, and in fact, I interviewed her and I put it up on my YouTube channel. I'll share the link with you. So she said, why don't you just come to Pune then? That's the next step. And I said, well, I've been writing and this guy called Pandu has been, no. And she's like, okay, don't worry. Now he's not going to say no. And that's what happened. And that's how I actually started going to Pune for the first time and subsequent years. So yes,
I think part of what they're doing, and probably, I don't know because I'm not in his head, but probably what they want to see is that people are really, serious about wanting to learn. So, maybe if you kept up, you'd break him down and he would say, okay, come.
Yeah.
But they want to have serious students because I did have, I was there a few times where there were some people that were just very new in the practice and they really needed to have studied longer with their teachers before they came to Pune, because that's frustrating for, these are the best teachers in the world. So when you go to the best teachers of the world, you should be prepared. You should have something that already is like, okay, I'm ready for more, for the next step.
Yeah.
But it's, that's one of the funny things about going to Pune.
It's a part of the journey also. It's something that I'm talking about right now. It's like an anecdote about how I ended up in Pune. So I guess it's an important thing. And if it didn't happen, maybe we wouldn't value it so much, or, maybe it definitely wouldn't make for such a great story, but it would also not teach me the importance of the privilege, of going to that place. Like like you said, it's like a miracle or magic that happens over there. And, maybe I wouldn't be able to appreciate it if it was just like an easy way through.
And thank goodness for older women that don't have any fear. They say, go for it.
Yeah.
Just do it. You're young. You can do it. Yes. I'm like that with my daughters too. You want to do anything in your life, do it. This is the time. You want to go to Pune, you want to go anywhere in the world, you should do it. Why not? But life is too short not to.
Yeah, and I'm so glad because that is actually what changed the course of my yoga, the relationship that I have with yoga. Otherwise, even right now, I may not have read Light on Yoga. I may not have read so many of the other books. I would never have been in that class with Geeta ji. So I think, that totally changed my life. And Abhijata was so welcoming. She was like, yeah, no, now he won't say no to you. Don't worry about that guy called Pandu. So
I think Abhijata, she wants to bring in all the young people to, to be able to share this with the young people, because it's, it's kind of gotten this bad reputation that Iyengar yoga is only for old people. And thank goodness that it can also help old people. But all of those old people, they started when they were young with Guruji.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've never seen anything like this. Maybe 2 weeks before Guruji passed away, he was 96 years old. I saw him practicing in the hall. And right before, they had set up the sticky mats, the blankets on the ceiling rope. And he was lying over the ceiling rope in a back bend like he normally would. He took his watch and I thought, he's going to time himself. So I'm going to sit. So I sat in Upavishta Konasana to watch him, because I wanted to see, what is he going to do? This 96-year-old man hanging from the ceiling rope. Oh my goodness. They helped him up. He's 96 years old. Let me tell you that he was hanging there for 30 minutes.
Wow.
I hang on the ceiling rope 5 minutes. It's enough.
Yeah.
96-year-old man, 30 minutes by the clock. So I was looking at the clock when he looked. And I timed it. Of course, I had never done a 30-minute Upavishta Konasana. Now I know I can do it. But this man was hanging there. His face was completely like a baby sleeping. No tension in his body. Absolutely relaxed. His face was in bliss at 96 years old.
Right.
I love telling this to my students when they tell me, oh, I'm too old, I can't do that.
Right.
So let me tell you about this BKS Iyengar guru and what he was doing 2 weeks before he passed away. Wow. We should learn from that. So my goal is that when I'm 96, I can hang like that from the ceiling rope,
right,
in a back bend, being like, he was like in a hanging shavasana.
Right.
Amazing.
Yeah. So a lot of people ask me, till when are you going to practice? Like a lot of my friends who are not into yoga, or, who have like jobs, and they are going to retire, and they ask me, well, how long can you do yoga? You're going to get old one day and you won't want to move. And I'm like, well, BK Iyengar was doing yoga for like his entire life. And that's what we look at. And it's like, although he's no more, it's still like a living legend, a living inspiration. You can still look up to him, and it's almost like he's very much present and sort of guiding the way I approach yoga, or I approach my future with yoga. It's again, it's like quite magical that he can still have so much of an impact.
I heard him one time say that he thinks he had created a system with the use of props so that he would be able to practice until his old age.
Wow.
And if we think about it, he was practicing. I mean, he wasn't doing Surya Namaskar and jumpings or Bakasana or Parshva Bakasana.
Right.
He was doing the poses that were helping him to breathe. He was doing the poses that were helping him to be in a state of bliss.
Right.
I can't imagine. I hope that it is my time that I can also be in a state of bliss, ready for the transition. And
wow.
I always make a joke with my students, because I'm Mexican. So Mexicans, we have a funny relationship with death. And when I put them in Shavasana, I say, imagine when the time comes, we practice Shavasana right now, not only to not have fear of death, but imagine when it happens, you get to do this for the rest of your life, your favorite pose. And they say, oh, Rosa, how can you say that? But I think of it like that. I say, being able to just surrender in a pose. Can you imagine? Oh, I get to do Shavasana for the rest of my eternity. Oh, I would be so quiet and relaxed and thankful.
I'm actually working on Shavasana in my personal practice. I read the Light on Yoga part of Shavasana, and I'm actually working on it, believe it or not. I'm just sort of trying to really learn how to do the Shavasana. I mean, I'm just trying to learn a little bit more about that posture.
For some people, when they're having anxiety or if they're having depression, Shavasana is not possible. Yeah. And when I was I was helping in the medical classes one time, and I was working with somebody, one of the patients who had severe anxiety and depression, and the Abhijata would not have them do Shavasana. No Shavasana. They would do Setubandha instead. And I know that sometimes, especially during this time right now, Shavasana is really hard for me to be able to be there in the state of bliss. Maybe I get more relaxation by doing Supta Baddha Konasana, or, longer holds in Setubandha and Viparita Karni. So it's, and that's one of the things I think that the beauty of this practice is that when we practice for a long time, you start understanding the effects of the poses, and you can understand, maybe this is not the pose for today. Maybe this is a pose, let's put this one on the shelf for now, because this is not the one I need. It's like when you have, a stomach ache, there's certain foods that maybe you don't eat to irritate your system. I think that, I've been looking at the asana practice like my medicine cabinet. My poor children, they're a little bit traumatized, because when they were little, they would, somebody got diarrhea. I would look it up in Light on Yoga. What does Guruji say for diarrhea? Shirshasana. Mommy, I don't want to do Shirshasana. I want medicine. I said, do Shirshasana. We don't have any medicine. And the poses worked for headache, for migraine, for backache, for everything. So, I keep trying it, and it seems to work.
And these days, I feel like the whole world is practicing the yoga for immunity sequence.
Yes.
And I've written several blogs on it, and there's a lot of interest even amongst non-yoga practitioners for the postures. And I think like a lot of people are actually benefiting from it. It's amazing. It's amazing to see that. It's almost like the world is now, waking up to yoga, or the message of yoga is being spread in this world, which like now we cannot go out. We're like going, we have to stay in, and metaphorically going inwards as well.
Well, I think that also people are realizing and giving it value, because, not all yogas are created equal. We know that. But there's also, like in any other careers, there's also the good teachers and the not so good teachers. And, you know, I think that that's also going to be revealed in this, you know, who's going to stick around.
That's an interesting take on it. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Anyways, I think I've taken up a lot of your time, right? Yeah. So it was really nice talking to you and connecting to you. And thanks for doing this. And hopefully we'll do it again. I'm going to write a blog about this as well, and I'll let you know when I put it up on YouTube. I mean, I could go on talking to you for like
I
another
love it too.
hour.
I feel like I'm in India having chai.
And we must do that when you come to India, and we, you know,
Absolutely.
hopefully in Belur or in Pune. But thanks for taking the time out and doing this.
Thank you so much for your invitation. It was lovely talking with you and coming into your home. Thank you. Welcome into my home.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
anytime anybody wants to talk about yoga, I'm on.
That's amazing. That's nice. All right.
So
So I will, so I will, you know, like record this and I will send it to you. And yeah, we'll stay in touch. And if I have any questions, I will let you know.
Thank you so much, Pragya. Have a good one.
You too. Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.